Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is, of course, Sunday, the 30th of August, and you're joining us here for race 4 in the Formula Renault calendar here in season 1 for the Flux Motorsport Championships. And it's looking pretty wet in Barcelona this morning. We have got weather reports stating it is looking to dry up as the day progresses, but these drivers just 4 minutes into the qualification session and having to get used to setting some quick times on a very, very wet circuit. My name is Murphy_GPR and I'm joined by my very good friend Lecky2000 in the box. Good morning, Lecky, you there?
Good morning, Murphy. How are you? A wonderful wet day here at Catalunya, like you said. Really interested to see how this one unfolds here with all this wet weather. Plenty of spins, plenty of action I hope unfolds. So really good to be here today.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shame, really, that it can't that the rain didn't progress through. I'd have liked to see these guys going wheel to wheel in the wet. Those little rear end wobbles that you get make it very interesting when you're going side by side.
That's right, yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see whether that clean sweep that we've come to know and expect from Bruce Law, whether he can maintain that and whether he's as good in the wet as he is in the dry, or whether we'll see another driver start to come to the front of the pack.
I know, running through some testing yesterday, Matthew, also known as Fast AF Gamer, he's looking pretty tidy around this circuit. We didn't see him on track with Bruce Law throughout that practice session, but he is definitely putting in some pretty tasty times, so we'll see how that progresses as we go through. But currently the pace being set at 1:35.695. That's a really quick lap from Bruce Law to get him on that provisional pole spot. Looks as though CMC also able to put in some quick laps. Fast AF Gamer currently not in the lobby, so we'll have to wait and see when he decides to join. But,
I think we've got him up on track now. I can see he's just joined, so I think he's just putting in a cold lap as we speak.
There he is, of course. Currently sat 5th in the standings without a lap set, so as we switch over to him, looks as though he's just about to put one lap on the board. Whilst we've got a bit of time though, with only 6 drivers inside this championship, let's have a little run through of the championship standings. So as Lecky pointed out, Bruce Law currently sat on the top of that championship standing table with 110 points. Second place, it's actually Dirk Diggler, who's sat with 77 points, 4 points ahead of Taijo 1212 so far. Then you've got to look 13 points back down to Matthew, aka Fast AF Gamer, and then Speedy Gone Hog in 5th position with Rock G at the back with 48 points in 6th. It looks as though Speedy Gone Hog not currently present. We'll have to wait and see whether or not he manages to get on track in the remaining 13 minutes. It looks as though Luna Zodiac is just joining us.
I'll just go and have a wander around the paddock and just see if I can grab 1 or 2 drivers.
So as we wait for that, it looks as though we're currently following Fast AF Gamer inside the pit box, so doesn't look as though he needs to do much adjustment. His first lap around sets him with a 1:35.537, and I did tell you he's looking tidy around this Circuit de Barcelona. But Bruce is definitely going to be chomping at the bit to try and knock him away from that pole position. Bruce Law has got a full clean sweep of qualification bonus points inside the Formula Renault Championship. In fact, I think the only part where he's missed out has been a fastest lap, which may have been in the GT1s on Thursday, just missing out on the fastest lap bonus point, and also a drop GT3 race last week. The week before, where he actually got disconnected just before the session. So we're 12 minutes ready to run, and we've got Bruce Law completing a lap. Let me explain what you can expect from Flux Motorsport coming up this week. I'm currently watching us at round 4 around Catalunya, of course, in the Formula Renaults, but in the GT3 Championship tonight at 8 o'clock PM UK time, you'll be able to watch the GT3 drivers pulling out their best stops around Laguna Seca. Really tricky circuit, as proven in the GT1 Championship on Thursday. So be sure to keep your eyes on that one. It's looking like it's going to be a full grid, and it's going to be Plenty of wheel-to-wheel action around this short but pretty intense Laguna Seca circuit. Then, of course, Thursday with the GT1s, we go into the second half of the season around the Zhuhai GP circuit in China. So we'll be keeping an eye out on the weather forecast for that one as well. Really tricky race in any weather conditions, but especially inside the wet.
Yeah, that one looks like it's spoiling up to be a great race, James. So really looking forward to that one. But just whilst you bring in the people the latest news about Flux Motorsport, I have seen we've had a pit lane violation there. So it looks like Dirk Diggler's potentially gone into the pit lanes a little bit too hot, maybe under lock-up in the wet, and I think that's got him disqualified from the qualifying session, actually.
You must have come in pretty hot to get fully disqualified, but yeah, that's going to be an interesting one then. So it looks like Dirk Diggler will be starting from the back. Bruce Law there just getting everything a little bit wrong, coming out with a hairpin. So he's returned to the pits and he's going to have another crack at it in the final 10 minutes and 46 seconds now remaining inside this qualification session. Fast AF Gamer currently sat on provisional pole with Bruce Law just 15 tenths behind him. Taijo there looking as though he's letting the power get the better of him. Maybe some changes to his wet setup required before he gets out and sets another hot lap. We'll flash over to CMCF1. He's had a mixed bag of a season really throughout his championships, just seemingly unable to get those cars hooked up, but our American driver will look to try and find himself in a better situation towards the second half of the championship. I know he's definitely been locking in much better qualification and practice times in all of his championship classes, so expect to see large improvements from him and driving to the ability that we know that he has. So, still on track, Lunar Zodiac yet to set a lap so far. Looks as though Dirk Diggler has been disqualified as well from the pit lane chatter coming from Lecky. So we're currently tracking Rock G around his laps. He's been unable to make much of a change and he's currently 6.5 seconds, near as damn it, off the pace of the leader so far. So potentially struggling in the wet, our South African driver. Let's have a look at him as he completes this lap. Let's see whereabouts he may be losing time. I can hear a lift-off coming in there, but it is required usually in the wet just to make sure you don't stray over those track limits as we see Rock G do. I'd expect him to be down into third gear now, and it looks as though he is running ever so slightly deep, so suffering from mechanical grip on the wet weather conditions despite using wet weather tyres. So he'll be praying that this weather clears up in time for the start of the race. It does look as though the rain has stopped here at Barcelona, so it is looking to dry up. Whether or not we see dry track by the end of this session, I'm not too sure.
I think that dry weather is going to make a massive difference to, obviously not just the tyres here, but the driver's approaches to both sessions. So knowing full well that the track is drying up, is that going to make a difference? Are some of the guys going to hang out and wait and try and come out on a dry line on dry tyres? I think that's going to make a massive difference to qualifying times. We might see those lap times come down there quite considerably.
That's true. I'm not seeing a dry line forming up on the circuit yet, but there are 8 minutes remaining in this session, and with 4 cars currently out on track, that should start to produce a dry line in certain areas. Plenty of dovetails still showing up though in the run up down the start finish straight and around turns 2, 3 and potentially 4. Actually, it looks as though it's just starting to dry out there, and then we see that big puff of mist pop back up again.
I think that's something what you've got to really watch out for more than anything. Despite even if we do get a dry line here at Catalunya today, it is going to be turn 1. I think the pooling, the collection of water, the puddling that you get on turn 1 tends to remain there more than it does on some corners. So drivers are still going to have to be careful at turn 1 and make sure that they're aware they need to take a slightly wider line there. That might catch one or two drivers out actually today.
Yeah, definitely. And also, something of note, Catalunya is absolutely punishing on tyres depending on your setup. Even with one of the slickest setups that you can get, expect really heavy wear on the front left, and we'll have to wait and see how that tyre degradation affects the drivers. It does depend on the setup, how extreme it's going to be, but the faster they drive, the more that tyre is going to suffer, and it will be trying to find the right sort of balance across the 45-minute race that is coming up on how they drive this one, whether or not they maybe just ease off ever so slightly and go for longevity, or whether or not they're just going to go throw the cap down, put some tyre on the road and potentially come in for a pit stop at some point during the race. Have to wait and see though. Fast AF Gamer still sits on top with a 134.974, so he has managed to creep up sub 135, so that's probably around about 6, maybe 7 seconds off the average sort of race pace lap. Sorry, the average dry qualifying lap. So not losing much time in these wet weather conditions, and it does look as though we're starting to get dry patches forming up. Whether or not it's ready for slicks, I'm not too sure. It still looks to be producing enough mist to sway me against that idea, but there are 5 minutes remaining, so maybe whoever waits the longest might be able to get the benefit of a relatively dry track. We can see there, just coming down the bottom of the start-finish straight, most of the track looking dry, especially into turn 1. It then just starts to form up, and we start to get the mist showing up.
Yeah, I think we saw with CMC there, the back of the car, just trying to kick out slightly as he started to go through turn 1. But certainly he does look like he's hunting for the wet line there, so potentially tyres starting to overheat already. As we see the sun starting to break through the clouds now, and a little bit of a shimmer off the lacquer on the paintwork. So certainly drying up out here, definitely.
5 minutes remaining of the session. Should be enough time for at least one potential on the slicks. I'm sure we'll see a gamble from the likes of Bruce Law. Potentially he's already on those slick tyres. We'll have to wait and see. Nope, still opting for the wets at the moment. So it looks as though Rock G might actually be in the best possible situation, unless we see these guys come into the pits to change over those tyres. He might just be able to get himself out onto a dry line and improve that start position. Come the end of 4 minutes and 36 seconds now remaining inside the qualification run. So we have got an extra driver on track. Dirk Diggler did get disqualified from his qualification session, so he's going to be starting from all the way back in the grid, it seems. Well, Fast AF Gamer reigns supreme with 4 minutes left to go. In fact, he's put in a 132.8, which suggests to me, Lecky, that he's actually gone out onto dry tyres to be able to get a time like that. I don't think that the wets would be able to push that hard. Taijo still remaining in second place now, 2.18 seconds. We'll have to see whether or not he can get down. He's still on the wet tyres. We can see from the graphics as we track him around the circuit, but he is just starting to run a little bit deep into some of these. So maybe the wet tyre now not working for him. Looks as though he could have a potential issue for understeer in certain sections, but he has got the benefit of traction in those little wet flashes that we're seeing still scattered around this Catalunya circuit.
Yeah, so from looking at the stats on the tyres, these tyres start to degrade at around about 100 degrees Celsius, or thereabouts. So if the tyres are starting to get pushed now, like you said, because of that dry line up above that 100-degree limit, they will starting to be to grain now, and that's going to be creating issues for them and a marbling effect on the track, which is really not what you want on already a slippy track. He then marbles to try and contend with. So it's going to make it a difficult race. Hopefully they can try and get that sorted between the qualifying and race and clear the track out a bit if there is any debris on it. But certainly going to make the end of qualifying difficult.
Yes, and that end of qualifying is coming up in 2 minutes and 40 seconds now, so these guys are going to have a few last attempts at getting themselves sorted out on track, as we see Taijo there warming his tyres up in very unusual ways inside the pit lane, just stepping out that back end. Looks as though he caught it. But I don't think tyre wear from that little manoeuvre is going to bother him too much. Just 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining as we see Fast AF Gamer. It looks as though we managed to stick that lap on the wet, so it looks as though he's still on wet tyres at the moment. So that 1 minute and 32 is an absolute blinder. Flashing back over to Luna Zodiac, who is on a hot one. He just passes over the Fast AF Gamer, and it looks as though he's gone into the top spot that last time around. A 1:32.021 from Luna Zodiac. This will be his first pole position if he manages to stick it come the end of this session. All drivers apart from Taijo 1212 though out on track at the moment, trying to take that away from him. So we're getting plenty more speed coming out of the circuit now as we approach the end of the qualification session. Track is definitely drying out, and those wet tyres aren't going to be helping most drivers in most situations. But perhaps Luna Zodiac has put some time and effort in, got to know this Catalunya circuit as well as his Formula Renault car, because it looks to be singing at the moment. Top spot with 1 minute and 10 seconds remaining of the session. Let's see if he can make an improvement as he comes across the line. He does make an improvement. It's come down to 129.1. Yeah, so that's really throwing down. In fact, this is almost at dry lap times now, so that just suggests that the track is pretty much dry. Slicks could probably work for most drivers now. 45 seconds remaining of the qualification session. CMC is still in the pit, so he's going to miss out on any further participation in this qualification session. It's all down to Rock G now and whether or not he can make an improvement as to where CMC finishes out on track. Tracking Taijo now just coming around that final sector. I think this is going to be a hot one. He's just exploring the limits of the track there pretty wonderfully, I've got to say, from young Filipino driver. He is playing on a pad, so let's see what sort of laps he can put in. Just about to cross the line now. We see no improvement there from Taijo. Could well be continuing his outlap, so he's going to get one crack of the whip here. Qualification session is now over. We've just got to wait on these lads to finish up their current lap. We see just a couple of spots of rain, it seems, just coming down towards one lingering cloud perhaps around Sector 3, but I don't think it's going to affect Fast AF Gamer here. This is his one chance to knock Luna Zodiac off pole position. Let's see how this one's going to fare up.
I think it's going to make things interesting. We are predicting for a dry race here.
131.255, so he's not done it. It's all on Bruce Law. Sorry to interrupt, Lecky, but just coming to the end of this, Bruce Law comes across the line and there's improvements to be made, but Luna Zodiac looks as though he's going to be in pole position now. Just a couple, in fact it's just one driver, it's just Taijo 1212 to complete his hot lap. So this will be Luna Zodiac's first podium in Flux Motorsport colours. He'll be very happy with it. He's going to have his work cut out to try and fend off the rest of the competition coming into turn one, but it is still going to get him a rather crucial bonus point. Taijo 1212 now looks as though he's got it a little bit too wrong on exit, and he absolutely plows into that tyre wall. So that is going to be the end of the session. Luna Zodiac does fantastic to claim his first pole position in both the Formula Renaults and within Flux Motorsport. Bruce Law only does enough for second spot, so he's going to join him on the front row. Fast AF Gamer ends up getting knocked down a couple of pegs after his great performance at the start of the session. He finds himself sitting in third place with Taijo 1212 alongside him. Rock G does make improvements to pip CMC in the end. He takes fifth place on the starting grid with CMC in sixth, and then Dirk Diggler gets knocked down after I think it was a pit lane breach of regulations, so he has to start all the way from the rear of the grid. So we will get this fired up now and get to our 2 minutes of tinker time for the drivers to set themselves up. What do you think about that qualification session, Lecky? Great to see somebody else making the top of the podium, and it was a great lap from Luna Zodiac to do it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, wonderful drive there from Luna. I actually thought he was out on slick tyres. He was going that quick in the session, but I think he was still out on wet tyres. So great performance there, pushing those tyres to the limit. Was disappointed that we didn't see a little bit more of Dirk Diggler in that session, second in the championship. Would have been great to see him out on the track in qualifying, but I think he wasn't the only one that made a mistake on the pit lane, as we saw just at the end of that session there.
Yeah, unfortunately, Taijo 12-12. Actually, I'd say it's probably fortunate to do it then. He's going to want to make sure that he doesn't do that in this session should he need to make a pit stop. 55 or so seconds remaining inside the Tinker Time, and then we'll be getting set for 45 minutes around this Catalunya GP circuit inside the Formula Renault Championship. It's definitely going to be a hot one. Remember, tyre wear is accelerated within all of our championships here at Flux Motorsport, so these guys are going to have to really watch any burnouts, spin-ups or lock-ups that they get throughout the first crucial few laps inside this one, when everyone's grouped together and everyone's pushing for that track position. But
I think you're right. Yeah, I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Ricky.
To do with the tyres, I think definitely you're right. I know I've heard some of the guys talking in some of the practice sessions that they've been having over the past couple of days, potentially a two-stop strategy. Even some of the guys considering a three-stop strategy because it's that punishing on tyres. I personally think at a push you can get away with one stop, but let's see.
Yeah, of course, just prepping now for the lights. And here they come, getting ready to start. Will Luna Zodiac get off the line quickly? It looks as though he does, but Bruce Law's also got a good start. Taijo looks as though he's just making his presence known up the inside, but falls back on that outside line, whereas Fast AF Gamer is absolutely hooning it through here. Looks as though he's going to get the move done on Taijo, so looks as though Luna Zodiac actually falls back to third place now with Taijo right behind him. Bruce Law takes the lead, followed by Fast AF Gamer, and then Luna Zodiac, our pole position sitter, falls down into third place. Coming into turn one, looks as though everybody's clean away through that first little section, turns 1, 2 and 3, and looking to form up in their file now. So Bruce Law continues to lead from Fast AF Gamer, but not by much, maybe about 5 or 6 car lengths so far. Remember, folks, that DRS is enabled whenever these drivers want or dare to use it, so we'll see plenty of DRS action, I'm sure, in the opening few laps of this one. Whilst they're all grouped together, it is going to have a negative effect on their on the downforce, passing through somebody else's dirty air, but they'll certainly get an increase in speed and top end, as we see plenty of smoke there coming off the tyres of Rock G, I think it was. Maybe a big lock up there, and it sees him fall down to 6th position. But Bruce Law continues to lead ahead of Fast AF Gamer, and then we've got Luna Zodiac looking pretty tidy in third place with quite a gap ahead of Taijo now come the end of lap 1. Plenty of action there in lap 1. We can see Taijo currently trying to fend off CMC, it seems. So CMC's having a little bit of a look, and Rock G's not too far at the back of those either. Looks as though we have got quite a gap forming up to Dirt Diggler, who looks as though he's not having the best start to his day. Hopefully he can get that sorted by the end of this session. 43 minutes remaining, so plenty of racing still to come.
That's right, yeah, I'm just getting through on the microphone as well. I think that Dirk's reporting is having some technical difficulties, some issues with the actual wheel itself, so potentially he may have to come in and get that repaired at some point.
Yeah, that's definitely going to set him back a little bit, and I think it'll be reflected in his lap times. Hopefully he can get that sorted. Maybe if he can hold out long enough just to try and factor it into a pit stop whilst the pit crews are working on his car, he can work on his wheel. But Bruce Law continues to lead ahead of Fast AF Game. He's got a second in it, so not much at all. And then we've got to look a couple of seconds back to Luna Zodiac, who's doing really well to hold himself in a podium position so far. See Taijo there just in the background battling with CMC. In fact, it looks as though CMC's made a little bit of a mistake. He's made a couple of mistakes, and that's now allowed Rock G to come on through. So the South African takes it from the American. CMC falls back into 6th position now. So Taijo's got a couple of seconds to make up ahead of Luna Zodiac. But we've seen in his practice races and in the most part of his qualification time that he can put in hot laps around here. So he'll be trying to push as hard as he can. And it looks as though Fast AF Gamer has gotten past Bruce Law. I'm expecting that was a slight mistake made by Bruce Law. He's going to have to try and get himself settled back in and try and chase down Fast AF Gamer, which isn't the easiest thing to do. Two very, very consistent drivers here, currently sat in 1 and 2 here at the Circuit de Catalunya.
Yeah, I think that was a minor mistake. Just coming out at that last chicane section, Just drops his lap time down by a couple of seconds. So interesting to see if he manages to pick that up over the next couple of laps. But yeah, Fast has putting in a considerable difference in lap time now, so he could run away with this.
Could well do. Bruce Law will be doing everything that he can to make sure that he keeps it in check. And these two drivers pretty much a master at controlling the car and deciding when to push and when to hold back. So I imagine Bruce Law will be pushing pretty hard over the next couple of laps just to try and get that deficit down, just so we can sit in a comfortable spot and hope and wait for a mistake to be made by Fast AF Gamer. As we see Rock G there running ever so slightly deep. He's currently trying to fend off CMC F1, and so far looks as though he's doing a pretty good job at it. Two drivers looking very similar in the lap times the last time around. I'm expecting it to be a little bit closer this time. We did see a mistake just coming out of the hairpin into that next section by CMC that last lap around. Let's have a look at what they're putting in this time. So Rockgy on a 132.9 previous. It's actually gone up ever so slightly, as has the lap time of CMC F1. So these guys may be just pushing themselves a little bit too hard as they have to try and build up the defensive game.
Yeah, I think we saw from CMC he was putting in quite reasonable wet lap times, but Rock certainly looking like he's a more comfortable driver in dry conditions. So much closer battle between these two here in the dry.
It certainly is, and it's going to give us plenty of action, I'm sure, as this race progresses. Fast AF Gamer has now been able to pull out a 2.2 second almost lead to Bruce Law, who in himself has got 3 seconds ahead of Lunar Zodiac. So you can see the difference there. It's pretty substantial, and Fast AF Gamer will be looking to try and build upon this further and further as the race goes on, up until he gets to that comfortable zone of being able to potentially get a free pit stop should he need it. I think we're going to try and see a lot of the drivers push into a zero-stop strategy just to try and make sure they don't lose the 30-odd seconds that it'll take to come into the pits, get some fresh rubber on, and then get themselves back out on track again. 30 seconds is a long time in motorsport, especially when you're racing with drivers as equally matched as you've got between Fast AF Gamer and Bruce Law. Looks as though Lunar Zodiac's made a huge mistake. He's currently racking in reverse. It looks as though he's done some damage to the rear end of that car. So we're going to have our first pitter, Lunar Zodiac, making a mistake into the final sector, coming out of the chicane. Spun him round and he's done some damage to the rear wing in the process. So expect a pretty lengthy pit stop from him. Meanwhile, we rejoin the track with the battle of CMC F1 and Rock G at the moment. Sorry, go ahead, Lecky.
Yeah, I was just going to say Lunar's going to be really upset with that. I know how passionate of a driver he is, and from some of the stewards' inquiries that we've had and some of the onboard helmet cam footage that we've had, know how seriously that he takes it. So yeah, from going from qualifying on pole position to what looked like just a minor mistake with the outside tyre, getting on the rubbers there, he'll be really upset with that.
It is such an easy track to make a mistake on as soon as you maybe run over a little bit too much curb or just clip over those track limits. It's going to slow you right down, which it looks like it's currently doing with CMC. We saw him just breach those track limits. Then it looks as though he's completed his slowdown, so it looks as though it's back to full power now for CMC as he tries to chase down Rock G at the moment. Rock G's putting in a pretty good performance so far. We've not seen the best racing from him in the Formula Renault Championship, but looks as though he's starting to get to grips with the car and its potential, and now starting to strut his stuff out there on the black stuff. Back over to Bruce Law, still 2 seconds away from Fast AF Gamer at the moment, but he's maintaining that sort of distance and maybe just trying to hold back into the clean air and wait for any potential mistake. When I see a driver like this holding on to that sort of split gap that they've got to the car ahead, it always makes me think with a driver of his ability that he is just holding back to make sure that he runs his own race. He'll be well aware that there's 36 minutes remaining of this session and that the race has got plenty more laps to go, with anything can happen.
Well, that's right. Oh, he's seen got round there, so
anything happen. Indeed, looks as though he just spun up the rear end, heated it up, and that is going to put loads of heat into those rear tyres. That's going to make the next few corners pretty tricky up until he gets onto the start-finish straight where he can potentially cool that tyre down. So uncharacteristic mistake there from Bruce Law, and that's now given Fast AF Gamer an 8.5 second lead ahead of him. So Fast AF Gamer is going to be licking his chops inside that helmet right now, knowing that he's got almost 10 seconds ahead of what you can say is arguably the most successful driver in Flux Motorsport's first season here, taking plenty of wins in all of our classes. So Fast AF Gamer is showing his worth in these high downforce Formula Renaults, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that any management that he was doing, I think you're right. I think a driver of Bruce's capability will have been trying to manage his tyres, will have been trying to just ease it back a little bit. Wasn't putting in some of the quicker laps that I've seen throughout some of the qualifying sessions over previous days, so practice sessions over previous days. So I think there was a lot of strategy involved in that. I think that's just been undone though with that spin. I think that's just taken all the rubber that he had saved straight off.
Quite possibly, and it looks as though he's still running his own race. Just looking at the split times, they are still increasing. So whether or not Fast AF is now pushing pretty hard, or whether or not Bruce Law is continuing to remain reserved, quite often when you have a spin like that, you'll sense a driver gritting their teeth and then starting to drive at pretty much 100% of their pace, which is a dangerous game when it comes to long stints in real or simulated motorsports such as you're watching now, unless you have got the ability to back it up. And that is pretty much what separates the great drivers from the greatest of all time drivers, that ability to drive at 105% lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, I hear on the grapevine the kids call them aliens because they're faster than light speed.
That's what it is. So we'll have to wait and see what Bruce can do with this, but he is now approaching 11 seconds. In fact, there it is, 11 seconds, the split time from Bruce Law to Fast AF Gamer. So got his work cut out. He's going to have to really choose his times to push, but Fast AF is absolutely running away with this one so far. You can see him now 31 seconds ahead of the driver at the back of the pack. Looks as though we've got CMC actually coming into the pits. It looks as though Luna Zodiac has since retired from the race. So CMC comes in. Is it going to be damage repairs? I'm hoping it's not tyres, because after only 8 laps, that's going to mean quite a few pit stops for him if he needs to come in for some front left rubber already.
Yeah, difficult camera angle to see in the pit lane here at Catalunya, so we'll try and keep you posted on this one. But yeah, it's I don't think that's damage. I think it's potentially tyres and slip. I mean, we're on lap 8 now, and on a dry track, the tyres will be starting to feel it now.
They are, but I think he's really going to struggle. I'm expecting this one. I mean, we're at 33 minutes so far, so we're only 12 minutes down. And if he's coming in for tyres already, this could mean 2 or maybe even 3 more pit stops if he can't learn to drive that car on broken rubber. So we're now tracking around Tajo 1212, which we have been for the last few corners here. He sits 20 seconds behind the leader. It is ever increasing, but his lap times are looking pretty consistent around that 132, 133 range. Definitely seen quicker laps from him on dry qualification runs and practice sessions that we've had. So in the race, so realistically looking at 131s to be a slower sort of race time from Tajo. In fact, there we go. He's just proven that point with a 131.2 that last time around. So he has got quite a comfortable margin of 10 seconds ahead of Rock G in 4th place. But that is only a couple of mistakes here, and they're pretty quick mistakes to counteract as well. You have a big spin and that 10 seconds will quickly turn to 0 in no time at all. Dirt Diggler, after his pretty woeful start, he was knocked back 2 grid places through the qualification session. I think he actually got disqualified from the session as well come the end of that. I think it was for speeding inside the pit lane. Didn't have the greatest of starts, but he's found himself up in 5th place after the retirement from Luna Zodiac and after the pit stop requirement from CMC. So he's got a big cushion window as well.
Yeah, I think CMC's just managed to come out now, but with that lengthy pit stop, that must have been damage related, so that won't have just been tyres.
Yeah, but potentially just getting something wrong and clipping the front wing. Tough cars to drive on a high downforce circuit like Catalunya without a front wing, so maybe just bit the bullet and came in. Whether or not he's got his tyres changed at that time, I'm not too sure. But I know for the sake of 10 seconds to be able to push at your fullest without having to worry for tyre wear, it might well be a good risk to play. But we switch back over. Oh, go ahead, Lecky.
With the speed that the guys have got in the pit lane, you know, they've got the changing the tyres down to a fine art now. So I think for any driver that does come in for damage and doesn't choose to change tyres, unless it's literally just the previous lap that he's come in, I don't think it makes sense for the drivers not to change tyres. I think most of the guys will be wanting to do that.
Yeah, depending on the amount that they've spun the tyres up and lit up the rear axles, rear tyre wear might not be too bad throughout this race. It is just mainly that front left that suffers the brunt of all the high-speed right-handers that we have at this circuit.
Yeah, that's right. And just changing the fronts, that will reduce the pit stop time by a couple of seconds. So from 5 seconds to maybe 2.5 seconds or so. So drivers will be looking to try and capitalise on that and only change tyres where possible. But yeah, that punishment on the front left, they'll be looking to try and reverse the adverse effects from the baking weather here in the dry race. Still a warm track, albeit not the best day at Catalunya, but so hopefully it being a bit more mild than we've seen in recent weeks might be helping. But again, they'll still be looking to change that tyre as and when they can.
So for those of you that missed our qualification session, we did actually have rain on track for quali. Looks as though it has since dried out. We're seeing clouds across the sky, but as Lecky's just pointed out, track temperatures are going to be quite warm, and that's only going to increase the amount of tyre wear that these guys are suffering. So Fast AF Gamer leads by just under 11 seconds to Bruce Law, who in himself has got 15 seconds or so ahead of Tyjo1212, who's currently sat in third place. Then got to go around about 15 seconds back to Rock G, who currently resides in fourth, with Dirk Diggler about 9 seconds behind him. And then CMC, after his pit stop, finds himself 2 minutes and 36 seconds behind the current race leader. So if we don't get pit stops from the guys at the front, CMC is going to find himself quite a long way back come the end of this race. Fast AF Gamer doesn't look as though he's got any signs of slowing down at the moment. Last lap around, setting a 129.3. Bruce Law is the only person that can match that. In fact, he slightly beat it by a 129.0.
Yeah, we're going to see him come across the line here again. I'm just starting to wonder whether CMC's had some difficulties with his setup, whether he's had a technical difficulty. His previous lap was a 140, but he's just putting a 134, so they are coming down again now. So he's taking the green sheen off those fresh tyres potentially.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's he's maybe just trying to adjust himself a little bit. He is currently setting the sort of lap times that we saw him setting in qualification, so he's getting there or thereabouts. But that was a slightly damp track if the lap wasn't set when it was absolutely lashing it down. So some improvement still to be made from CMC, but he can run his own race now. He's 2 minutes 40 behind the leader. But Dirk Diggler looks as though he's losing quite a bit of time as well. He set a 141 that last time around, so Dirk Diggler, if he's not careful, will soon to see CMC F1 in his rearview mirror, if they had a rearview mirror that is, and it looks as though Dirk Diggler has since come into the pit, so Dirk Diggler potentially making a mistake at some point that last time around. I'm assuming he's going to be going in for some damage repairs. It's going to be a lengthy one, and it's probably going to see CMC F1 take that fifth spot from him. All depends on the pace, but I can imagine it's going to happen pretty soon. CMC F1 just coming around the final corner now, so
yeah, I think that's him just getting lapped there, so I think that's Fast As in front, just lapping him for the first time.
That's right. In fact, they'll be lapping him for the lapping Dirk Diggler, I think, for the second time. Yeah,
that's right, yeah.
CMC F1 may just be able to use the benefit. In fact, it doesn't look as though there's any benefit to be had. Fast AF Gamer has already pulled out a huge distance, but just about to say maybe pull the benefit of following the line of the faster guy. Try and stick to his line and maybe just learn how he's taking certain corners and look to make those improvements whilst on track.
Yeah, and I think that's a big critical factor for turning in and maximising corner entry at Catalunya. He's literally using all the track. Difficult to always, we see him going off there, but yeah, it's difficult to do. Trying to utilise all the track under the wet conditions. So the difference in qualifying and the race setup, I think, is potentially seeing some of the guys push a little bit more than they might do normally, just to try and find where the boundaries are, which is always difficult to do in a race, and not always the best decision. Sometimes a little bit more caution's advisable.
You can see Rock G has since come into the pits. Looks as though he's been in for a relatively lengthy one as well, so maybe a mistake has cost Rock G. We didn't see his lap times plummet down, so maybe it is just for tyres and some potential engine repairs. But he still remains inside that pit. Looks as though he's just getting away now, so he remains in 4th position. It looks as though it's Bruce Law just approaching.
So that looks like it is just tyres. Doesn't look like he's coming for damage though. It's just a very long pit lane at Catalunya, so that feels like it maximises the pit length.
Yeah, potentially. We see him CMC coming in once again. We saw him losing it on a couple of corners as we tracked him around that last lap, but he comes back into the pits, and it looks as though it's going to be another repair job for CMC F1. Not having the greatest of times in the Formula Renault around this Catalunya circuit. Tyjo 1212 also in the pits, assuming that one is for tyres. Looks as though he's just coming into his pit box there, as we saw in the background. So now tracking around Dirk Diggler. He's found himself overstepping CMC once again for that 5th position. Still resides 2 minutes and 7 seconds behind the leader though, which is Fast AF Gamer, lap 14. He's now got 9.5 seconds ahead of Bruce Law. So Bruce Law is starting to rein it in ever so slightly, but he's still got a mountain of a task to try and conquer Fast AF in the remaining 24 minutes of this session.
So we've still got Tyjo in the pits. I think that potentially is a little bit of damage, so whether that's a bit of an engine reparation or front wing damage. Like you said, the front wings do take a bit of a knock here at Catalunya because of some of the sausages, so potentially he's getting damage repair there. So that's certainly going to help Rock.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Rock G is clawing down that difference. In fact, it looks as though he's just about to take him. As Tyjo comes to the pit lane exit, Rock G finds himself just entering the first corner. So, good consistent drive from Rock G. I think Rock G actually came in for tyres. I'm sure we'll get that backed up for him when we finish this race. But it looks as though he's just running his own strategy and making it work. Now, interesting, we did see really quick laps from Tyjo 1212 in the practice sessions. Maybe not so much in the qualification, but is he going to be able to rein Rock G in pretty quick, or is Rock G finding himself pretty steady in 3rd position, and he'll get the elbows out and want to try and keep hold of that final podium spot? Maybe I spoke too soon though. See him getting very wide there out of that turn, picking up a load of gravel, and that's allowed Tyjo 1212 to be right up his gearbox. So here comes the defensive driving now from Rock G, trying to keep Tyjo 1212 at bay, but it's going to be easier said than done.
Yeah, I think that was potentially just the tyres being that fresh, just having to get the initial scrub off him as he goes wide again.
As we come out of the final corner, Tyjo 1212 just still trying to persist on the back of Rock G. We saw a little puff of smoke from the rear right of Rock G coming into the braking of that one, but that's to be expected. Braking pretty hard, and it looks as though he's pulling away a small gap ahead of Tyjo. Just trying to keep an eye out on the split, so it's only round about a second or less than a second so far. Tyjo 1212 just needs to try and keep it slow and steady whilst maintaining the position on Rock G. Doesn't want to push himself too hard. Remember folks, he is on a gamepad, and any slight twitch of the thumb and he'll find himself in a whole world of pain. But looks as though he's got it well locked in now. You see Rock G just running ever so slightly deep on that one. It is a utilisable line though. Looks as though he's still making it work. Maintains that gap of 1 second as we enter the second half of the circuit.
Yeah, great to see these two guys battling here. For a decent set of points on track against slightly lower turnout than normal. But this is for a good amount of points. Good international battle here. South Africa against the Philippines, so great to see.
See Taijo there just having a little look up the inside, and it's cost him a fair bit, but it looks like Rock G ran a little bit deep, and it looks as though that deficit that Taijo lost has just been given right back to him. So here's a question of nerve between these two. Both of them will be pushing, both of them will be aware of what's at stake with the final podium spot, as we see Bruce Law inside the pit, so he's about to be overtaken, I think, by these two drivers.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to come out in time, so they're going to sail past him here. Yeah, he's just coming in there in the background.
So it currently sitting with Rock G in second, although our screen hasn't yet updated. In fact, it looks as though we've got a disconnection. CMCF1 has since retired to the pits, so we continue to race with only 5 drivers on track. Bruce Law remains inside the pit lane. I think this is going to be a lengthy tyre stop, but Fast AF Gamer now has an absolute mile ahead of him before the next drivers. Do beg your pardon, Bruce Law actually hadn't pitted before, whereas these two drivers out on track had done. So Bruce Law remains in second place, and he has got himself back out on track as Rock G makes a big mistake, runs very, very deep, ends up cutting away that corner, and that just allows Taijo to move right on through. So Rock G will need to get his composure back, dust off the dirt from those tyres, and
look at that gap. That's a huge gap already.
Straight away. So Fast AF Gamer now has 52 seconds ahead of Bruce Law. Bruce Law with some fresh rubber will be able to push, but he's got a long way to push ahead, and he's still losing time to Fast AF at the moment. Lap 18 of a 45-minute race. We have 20 minutes remaining of the session, so we're past the halfway point now, and Fast AF Gamer has essentially got a free pit stop in the bag should he need to take it, but I'm assuming he's going to push these tyres all the way to the limits, whilst he's not losing much lap time. 129.299 the last time around from Fast AF, which isn't too far away from today's current race lap record, which will get the driver the final bonus point to go along with the qualification.
Yeah, I think it's these possibly one of the slower laps that Fast F's putting in a 129, low 129s. I don't think he's outside of the first lap. I don't think he's put a lap in that's over the 130s at this stage. So really great run from him today, really consistent. I think he will come in. He will eventually pit. I don't think he's going to run the risk of staying out there for the entirety of the race without changing tyres, and knowing that he's got a comfortable gap behind him as we see him coming in there.
Just saw him coming in. I could see the split times just dropping away from Bruce Law. So Bruce Law's going to be setting himself up for 100% driving now. He'll be pushing that car to its absolute limit, knowing that he can take over into first place come the end of this lap if he plays it right. It's going to be a pretty lengthy pit stop from Fast AF. I'm assuming that there isn't much damage to repair on the car, so it's just going to be coming in for a change of tyres. So keep your eye out on the pit lane indicator. 22 seconds now the gap, but Bruce Law is coming around the final couple of corners. Chicane nice and flat, and he's going to be pushing hard. Looks as though Fast AF Gamer is back out on track. So yep, he's now returning to racing. It was around about 55 seconds the gap ahead. It now looks as though it's around about 11.5, so this is definitely more achievable from Bruce Law. We saw after an early mistake from Bruce Law, he found himself around about 10 seconds back, so it looks as though in the final third of this race he actually finds himself where he started up at the end of the first third.
Yeah, I think potentially he's on, slightly warmer tyres already. They'll be gripping a little bit better going round it into a slightly warmer lap. So he might close that back up. You might see a second drop off, and he sit firmly at the 10-second, like you said, where he went into the pit lane. But it'd be interesting to see whether he starts to push now and starts to close that gap, knowing that we're into the final furlongs.
Indeed. So Bruce Law still with a mountain to climb. He is chipping away ever so slightly on that deficit, but it is a tall order to try and achieve. Currently sat at around about 10.5 seconds. So we'll keep an eye out on the splits as they come in. Bruce Law actually last time around setting a 1:28.56. Let's have a look how this one's stepped up. In fact, I beg your pardon, that one... we've switched over to Rock G. Apologies for that, ladies and gents. Let's have a look at what it comes in this next time around. Bruce Law will be crossing the line momentarily.
Yeah, we see Matt Fast As times coming in at 1:39. But that is obviously from leaving the pits. So as he comes round again, I think we'll get a better comparison. But Bruce put in a screaming 1:28 in there, so that's going to be one of the fastest laps of the session today. I'll see if I can bring up the timings for you.
Yeah, we can see Bruce Law setting the fastest lap of the session, 1:28.56. Previous one to that was a 1:28.179 from Fast AF Gamers. We see Rock G there really struggling with that turn, it seems. We saw him go off there a little bit earlier on and just end up basically cutting through that corner, just running out of traction, it seems. He is being approached by our current race leader, Fast AF Gamer, so he will be under blue flags momentarily, and he'll have to move aside and clear the way for the race leader.
But yeah, just looking at the split times there, that lap time for Bruce Law, it does look like he's just closing it back a little bit. It's dropped to around about 10 seconds now from 11. So both guys are going to be pushing, but with the remaining time in session, if neither guys pit and maintain the current pace, I think Fast As will still have this in the bag.
Yeah, we see the split times have started to rise again. I think there's been a mistake from Bruce Law again coming out of that final chicane section. We saw him just lose around about a second or so, it seemed. But he was still able to put in a 1:28.794. So maybe it was just the effect of him braking for that particular section of corners.
Yeah, but this is to what we refer the 0.7 of a second or 7 thousandths of a second it's a gain, but it's not enough of a gain for him to see him claw back enough of a gap to catch up with him. He's just going to have to hope for a mistake from Fast As and try and maintain consistency himself and just hope that put it in the lap of the gods, as they say.
Yeah, I think hoping for a mistake from Fast AF Gamer is it's praying for a miracle, really. He's been really consistent throughout all of the championship races inside the Formula Renaults. We've seen similar consistency in most of his other racing as well. I think just a couple of missed appearances has seen him drop down some of the running orders in some of our other championships on offer. And if you'd like to find out more information about those championships, you can follow us on all popular social media sites. So you'll find us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, but you can also head on over to www.fluxmotorsport.com for information about how you can join the community or information about what it is that we try to offer each and every member of our fantastic, clean sim racing community. So just having a look at the standings, just to make some comparisons. So Matthew, aka Fast AF, is currently tied in first place in the GT3 Championships before today's race at Laguna Seca. He's tied along with St. Bath for that one, with Wanta just 3 points behind them. And he is currently a driver, I believe, in the GT1s, just bringing that one up. So he finds himself, I beg your pardon, sorry, no, not a driver inside the GT1s. So Matthew, or Fast AF Gamer, is finding himself at the top of all of the championship standings that he races in. So proving himself really as a very young, competent driver. Really gets his game face on and can run reliably through long stints. As is proven today, he's barely put a foot wrong in the first 29 minutes or so of this session. We're back around with Dirk Diggler at the moment. Looks as though he's very tentatively taking it around here. dropped to second, and he'll be looking to get onto the power now as we come through what is a very, very brave section. You've got to be hard onto the brakes, kick it down a gear, and then just trust that you're going to have the grip, which it doesn't look as though Dirk Diggler has from this onboard footage. Ends up running a little bit wide on that one, so car looking as though it's understeering quite heavily. Maybe just not got the grip into those tyres yet, but you'd expect it this far into the race.
Yeah, he's just going at the pit stop, so again, just taking the scrub off the tyres, but you would expect, you know, a little bit more poise on turning, like you said. Sticking that corner, not too bad. Difficult corner, that right-hander. And that is it. That understeer again, I think, where he's just suffering there as he comes through the last section. Not too bad in the last couple of corners, clipping the apexes, but as he comes across the line.
So Fast AF Gamer remains in first place. He's got a 9.7 second lead to Bruce Law. In fact, that's just crept back on up to 10 because of their track positions at the moment. Tyjo 1212 finds himself in third place, but he isn't too far ahead of Rock G. One mistake will cost them, and that's for sure. So we've currently got 12 seconds at the moment, with Dirk Diggler in fifth place. Both CMC F1 and Lunar Zodiac retired from this race very, very early on. So a big mistake from Lunar Zodiac, which saw him get encountered with the pit wall, and CMC F1 just struggling to try and get his car working the way that he needs it to into this session. But fantastic racing from Fast AF to keep Bruce Law at bay throughout the entirety of this race. We saw one mistake cost Bruce Law quite heavily, around about 6 seconds. But other than that, even Bruce Law's been pretty on it today.
Yeah, I think the lap times that we're seeing, they're going tit for tat now. It's you know, an answer and a response from each driver. They tend to be going Bruce Law slightly faster, a couple of tenths, Fast AF slightly faster, a couple of tenths, and the lap times are switching and changing. Not much in it though, and the like you said, the gaps remaining around the 10-11 second mark. So again, I think we're just going to have to put it down to a potential mistake for that gap to close up. Other than that, it's going to be Fast as this race, and like you said, a great performance from him today.
I wouldn't be surprised if when we come up to the final laps of this race that we see Fast AF really torture those tyres and try and put in a hot one just to try and pick up the bonus points. So Lunar Zodiac is only going to collect up bonus points from today's session, so one for him for his pole position. But Bruce Law currently holding on to the fastest lap bonus point. Fast AF Gamer is not going to want to give it to him on a plate, that's for sure. We'll see a big push from him towards the end of this, I'm sure.
And that's the first miss kick as it was there from Bruce Law. So previously to that, he'd pipped Fast AF by a couple of tenths on his previous lap time, and that's the first lap time where we've seen Fast AF maintain the 128s and Bruce just get into the 129. So potentially just a difference on how the front end set up, a little bit more scrub, a little more heat being gained into Bruce's tyres potentially. He's just not allowing for that consistency for quite as long.
Yeah, it's certainly going to mix things up, I think, in the championship standings. If Fast AF Gamer manages to hold on to the win today, 35 points on offer for a win. If he can also get the fastest lap, that'll be an extra bonus point on top of that. It is 30 points for second place, but this will allow Matthew, aka Fast AF, to sit sort of just above Dirk Diggler and maybe just behind Tyjo 1212 come the end of this one. But Bruce Law will still remain at the top of the standings regardless of what happens here today. It's just how big of a lead is he going to have as we go into race 5 next week, which I'm just pulling up the information now. Race 5 of the Formula Renaults actually takes us around the Le Mans Bugatti circuit, so very different track to what we've got set up today. It's going to be an interesting one.
Another punishing one on tyres though.
Yep, very different in the way that they behave, but equally punishing in tyres. So going to be an interesting one for sure. Looking at this, I think I previously mentioned that the GT1s are going around Zhuhai in race 5, whereas our GT3 cars come race 5 are going to find themselves around the Fuji GP circuit. So 3 fantastic races to come up next week on Flux Motorsport TV. Remember, if you want to make sure you don't miss any of the action, hit that subscribe button and feel free to leave all of your comments. They do get reviewed, and unfortunately I'm not able to check them right now, but we'll be reviewing those later on. Love to know what your predictions are for the remainder of the second half of the championship, and also whereabouts you're watching the streams from and at what times, what you're up to, just to give us a little bit of inside information about the people that watch our streams. So Fast AF Gamer, he's coming up to the end of lap 27 now. 5 minutes remaining of this one, so looks as though we're going to have a couple more laps remaining. Bruce Law maintaining a 10-second gap to Fast AF, but unable to build upon it. We can see Taijo 1212 there. He has been lapped, but it looks as though he's making a push to try and unlap himself. Just getting a little bit twitchy there, and we can see the quite obvious characteristics of a gamepad player, those big lateral movements from the steering input. Potentially suffering a little bit of thumb fatigue now, Taijo 1212, but he's managing to keep his lap times there or thereabouts. Just a couple of adjustments as he comes out of that corner. He's going to be hard onto the brakes to step it down into second or third gear, depending on which way he likes to take it. Sounds as though it's second, and it's just caught a little bit too much of him. It makes a big collision with the wall. We can see that front wing blasting away. Now Taijo 1212 needs to make the key decision. Is he going to continue to race out there without a front wing, or is he going to have to pit and relinquish his podium position to Rock G? I know which one I'd be inclined to stay with. He's got 15 seconds to Rock G, only 4 minutes and 20 seconds to hold out for. I think I'd be giving that one a gamble, because the place is definitely going to be Rock G's if he comes into the pit lane. It's going to be a lengthy pit stop to replace that front wing. We're looking at well over a minute. So Taijo could actually find himself right back in 4th place. He's not going to risk finishing 5th, but he will definitely lose out on that final podium should he come into the pits.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's just under 4 minutes left in session. Rock G's put in, prior to the previous lap, 1 second slower per lap, but Taijo's just going to cross the line in a 1:38, so let's see what Rock comes across the line in. He doesn't appear to have pitted, so he does appear to have opted to stay out. Let's just see what he comes across the line with.
These lap times, that split time is going to start to plummet now between Taijo. If you look into the centre of your screen, you can see it's currently sat at just under 10 seconds, but he's losing time, hand over fist here, to Rock G. We then focus on Taijo 1212, missing that front wing. The gap to Rock G then fell away. It looks as though we've got an issue from Bruce Law. Has he run out of fuel? Looks as though he's lost his front wing.
That was an accident, yeah. It looks like mechanical damage there. Front wings are missing.
Looks like some pretty serious damage. Doesn't look as though he's able to get the car away. You can see he's taking evasive manoeuvres there, but
this could be a rare retirement from Bruce, actually.
I think it could. He's definitely made a mistake somewhere to cost him that front end. So Taijo 1212 now slips into second place. Rock G falls into third, with Bruce Law literally coasting that car around as best he can. So Dirt Diggler comes into the pits. He'll be kicking himself on that one if he was able to hear from the stream that Bruce Law is going slow. He could have had a potential push to try and take that 4th spot away from him.
But yeah, I think we might now have the... I don't think this ever happened before at Flux Motorsport history, or in our racing history. But we could see second place finish here with only half a car.
Yeah, missing a big chunk of that front end, but he's come across the line into lap 28. It'll be for Taijo. He's currently 1 lap behind the leader. And that gap to Rock G has come down to 6 seconds. So Rock G is sniffing out a second place on the podium now. Previously, he was just hunting down that final spot, but an uncharacteristic mistake from Bruce Law finds him dropping down the running order. Now sat in 4th place, and he's not even got himself to the pit lane yet. I think it's just going to be a formality of finishing this one for Bruce Law, hoping that he keeps hold of that 4th place spot. So Fast AF Gamer continues to set sub 130 lap times around Catalunya. Tyjo 1212 is in 2nd place, but he's only got 6 seconds to Rock G, with looks like it's going to be 2 laps remaining potentially.
I think it's just one. I think there's just less than a minute left in session, so
will
you might be right
where
under 2.
Fast AF Gamer is on track at the moment. In fact, Fast AF Gamer's just crossed the line. So no, this is going to be the final lap for most drivers, I think. 52 seconds remaining of the session, but it takes 1 minute and 28 seconds for Fast AF to set a lap here. So Tyjo 1212 continues to battle on with that front wing, and he's doing very well through this chicane section. It's got to be said, managing to keep that rear end in check. Not seeing
I
many
think it's going to be the
kickouts
straight where he feels the real punishment, though, because I mean the lack of aero compared to a car that's set up with all of its aero, it's going to be pushing all sorts of wrong ways, really turbulent, and it's going to slow him down a lot.
Doesn't look as though it's slowed him too much down from Rock G at the moment when it came to that straight, but as soon as Tyjo enters the cornering section, we can see that split time flying down. So 3 seconds remaining. It's going to be down to the wire between Rock G and Tyjo 1212. Split currently sits at 2.5 seconds. So with over 2/3 of the lap to remain, Bruce Law looks as though he's sticking it out. He knows that it's going to be a lengthy pit stop, and he doesn't want to risk that 4th place spot to Dirk Diggler. So Bruce Law will just be coasting this one around as a formality, whereas Fast AF Gamer comes around the final corner for the final time and takes an absolutely mammoth win here in the Formula Renaults around Catalunya. Great racing from him. It's been flawless from start to finish, and looks as though he hasn't managed to get that bonus point away from Bruce Law. Been keeping an eye out on his lap times as we see Rock G now makes a move around the outside upon the battered and broken Tyjo 1212.
He's not made it stick.
But Tyjo 1212's got the inside line. Rock G had to running a little bit wide, and Tyjo 1212 holding on for dear life to that 2nd place. Rock G pushing him all the way to the very end. Is he going to have enough grip to get him out of the final turn compared to Rock G, or is we going to see Rock G make a move just on the straight? Tyjo 1212 making his car as big as possible, and it looks as though Tyjo's going to take this one. Rock G just makes a move up. We see the move blocked as we see it getting very messy there towards the end.
I've never seen a Formula Renault that big.
Ends up taking it, and Rock G looks as though he's claimed that 3rd place. We're going to see Bruce Law hopping himself across the line as soon as he can make it. It's whether or not he's going to make it in 30 seconds. In fact, no, it looks as though he's parked it up on the grass, and he'll be having a long walk back down to the paddock. Dirk Diggler looks as though he's just got a couple of corners to go, and that'll be the end of the race for him. He also finishes without a front wing. So Dirk Diggler with a race to forget, unfortunately.
So I think this is going to be unheard of. Essentially, we've had 2nd and 5th place both finish without front wings.
And 4th place, really lucky. So Bruce Law finishing on the grass, but he also missing a front wing. And that does conclude our Formula Renault session in race 4. Fast AF Gamer, with a dominant display, ends up with a 47.3 second lead to the 2nd place of Tyjo, who did very well indeed to hold off Rock G all the way to the very end, completing just a couple of laps towards the end with no front wing. Rock G, with a fantastic performance from our South African, did very well to get himself on the podium, and it was pretty consistent in his race throughout that one. A couple of mistakes being made, but generally on the run of it, really solid performance from him. Bruce Law ends up in 4th position in the end. He's showing up as DNF, but his race classification will stand. And then Dirk Diggler ends up finishing up in 5th place at the back of the running order.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show here at Flux Motorsport, literally anything can happen, and it isn't over until it's over.
Most definitely. And Tyjo 1212 and Rock G really getting the benefit of that situation. But from us here at Flux Motorsport, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us on the stream this morning. Remember, you will be able to catch all of the GT3 action along with me later on tonight, live from 8 o'clock PM UK time on our YouTube channel. If you haven't done already, make sure you hit subscribe, and we'd really appreciate a like to the video depending on when you're watching it. And of course, if you want some more information about how you can join Flux Motorsport, all you need to do is head on over to FluxMotorsport.com and you'll find the information on how you can click a link and get right into our Discord channel. I've been Murphy GBR, joined with Lecky, who I'd like to thank very much for joining us here today. And
thanks for having me.
We'll be bringing you all the action from tonight's GT3 race, again live at 8 at Laguna Seca. From us here at Flux Motorsport, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you very, very soon.